inviting us to Moto for this time. I know you're a busy guy. These days, one being guy, I was told you out of the country.
Don't use that word.
Is that the truth?
Eh?
Isn't that the truth, though?
Yeah. In and out, it's true. Okay. So you caught me when I'm in country. But
well, I wanted you last week, but then Kuti told me that you weren't going to be available last week. You're on some being a business out in these streets. So thank you very much for inviting us over for this conversation. As we spoke earlier, the PVO bill is something we know about, we've read, but it's not something that we can talk about implicitly because it's not really within our scope of coverage. So then we get guys like you to do all the hard work while we just sit here and listen to you guys talk. Right. So introduce yourself to the people who might not know who you are.
Okay, so my name is Comrade Fatso, as you already said in the intro. That's the most important bit. I'm the convener of the Content Creators Network, which is an alliance of some of the leading digital media and community media organizations in Zim. So it includes Magamba Network, Bus Stop TV, Site, Telzim, ZimFact, Newshawks, Batsana.
Wait, Newshawks?
Newshawks.
They joined?
Yes.
And you excluded us?
Thanks.
Oh, okay.
Come join.
An invitation. Association here to form.
Guys, come on.
And you forget us. I'm going to
you started on a fantastic note.
I'm going to use our verified check mark to knock you down a couple of pegs.
And Techzim soon to be included because
please.
They want to kupinda. So that's one of my hats, and then I think the hat that a lot of people know me for is as founder of Magamba Network, co-founder of Magamba Network, and creative director. We run a bunch of different creative and digital media platforms here, all about inspiring the youthies. Some people may have seen me on the small computer or phone screens doing some satire because that's my passion. I'm an artist. I do a fair bit of political satire with our show The Week and everything. That's me in something that's not a nutshell.
An extensive description of who you are.
You should have described me with one line.
That's a good thing because I didn't want to then go out at length and you correct me like, no, but I am also this. So I just wanted to keep that on 100.
Yeah, I know. I make it up as I go along. So.
Fantastic. Likewise. I do the same, but not in equal measure. So I've been on TikTok for 7 months now, not of my own doing. It's an addiction I'm trying to work through. Yeah. And I saw a bunch of your videos about the PVO bill. So that was my first exposure to it before we got the Project Veritas email that everybody gets when something happens in Zimbabwe.
Oh, dope.
So your description of it was something that made me ask the question, what is a private voluntary organization? What is an NGO? So those terms are things. Tumaza is Madonna. Just the general term is Madonna, but what is an NGO? It's something that I was like, how do you non-governmental organization is self-explanatory. Yeah. But it's a broad term, and I'm sure you can give light on what exactly NGOs are in essence. Yeah.
So to give some background about what NGOs are, and then the PVO bill itself. Yeah. So I think the NGOs, or as they're known more and more, CSOs these days, civil society organizations. NGOs obviously stands for Non-Governmental Organization. The fact is, that civic organizations, I think in Zimbabwe and globally, do a huge range of work. So NGOs can be doing anything from running orphanages, feeding the homeless, running women's empowerment schemes, all the way through to lawyers that represent people whose rights have been trodden on, through to organizations that work to fight for human rights and social justice. So it's a very kind of NGOs. I think are a very kind of broad sector. And so more recently, I think they're referred to as CSOs, civil society organizations. It's a bit nicer to describe yourself as what you are than what you are not. They are not a government organization. So what are they? Are they anti-government organizations? No, we're not that. That's a bit of the background on that. But then, the PVO bill, of course, which we've been trying to raise awareness about as Magamba. And I'm happy that you said you discovered it first on TikTok, because that's what our activism is all about. That's what our media is about, is like, trying to make the unsexy thing sexy. Like, make information sexy. Put PVO Bill on TikTok and see how far.
Yeah.
So the PVO Bill, it's the Private Voluntary Organizations Bill. So a private voluntary organization is it's similar to an NGO, but it's the way it's being used is quite a broad it's quite a broad term. So this the way the government is using it, this bill, it can cover basically everything that I discussed before. This broad range of different organizations doing very important work. And unfortunately, what the government is trying to do is to use this bill to try and clamp down on civil society organizations, to try and silence them. And so this bill supposedly is about countering money laundering and following the international, what are called FATF regulations, which are all about countering money laundering. And for some reason, the government is focusing this specifically on non-governmental organizations. Zimbabwe already has enough current laws to deal with money laundering, first. Secondly, where money laundering is happening is not NGOs. The majority of that actually is happening in companies and corporates, which overwhelmingly are linked to individuals within the state who've either got dodgy tenders and so forth. That's where the money laundering is happening. So that the whole pretext behind the PVO bill is just a pretext. It's a facade. The real reason behind it is to try and clamp down on civic organizations, because let's not forget that civic organizations include Magamba, they include Bus Stop TV, they include ZimRights, Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, ZimCod. So all of these, I think really important organizations that are doing work to empower citizens, to help amplify their voices. And they're trying to put this bill in place before 2023. Our Hurumenta has been trying to decimate the opposition through creating fake ones, and now they're moving their focus on also trying to attack civil society, because without a viable opposition and without a strong civil society, how are you going to mobilize young people to register to vote? How are you going to get them to vote, and how are you going to monitor the vote and all the fraud that happens? So that's the reason behind it, and it's extremely, I think the word is, when we've used it so much in Zimbabwe over the last few decades, draconian. It's draconian. It's authoritarian.
Those words are buzzwords now.
Buzzwords, and I tried to do it in a Tendai BT accent.
But nobody can get that accent.
No, they can't. Or the small hat on top of his head. So basically, it'll force NGOs to register, even though NGOs should be self-regulating. It forces them to register with the government, and then it gives the registrar insane powers. So for no specific reasons, it's very vague in the bill, he can remove board members of an NGO, replace them with his own board members. He can then they can remove personnel, staff from that NGO, replace them with their own staff, have access to all their files, their documents,
because I also read in the bill it said that civil servant, they can appoint a civil servant to go over an NGO's books, or someone in the civil service to go over an NGO's books.
Yes.
So my question is that are NGOs not making declarations to the government as to how much they're spending?
Yeah, so I think the thing is that definitely happens. NGOs pay tax. Zimra gets paid on a regular basis from NGOs. So that's not the issue. Like NGOs, civil society organizations end up contributing quite a huge amount to our forex reserves, to the US dollars that are in circulation here. NGOs have got all their accounts with major banking institutions here. There's nothing untowards. Every month your Zimra is paid, your NASA is paid, and so on. So the issue is not about lack of financial transparency. Unfortunately, lack of financial transparency is a government issue, not an NGO issue. What this allows ZANU-PF to do is basically take over troublesome NGOs. So it can decide for no apparent reason that Zimrights has done something wrong according to information it has received, and it can remove the board of Zimrights, replace it with their own compliant board, and turn Zimrights into a government-controlled organization. So that's what's so worrying about this bill, is it just gives these sweeping powers.
But isn't that counterintuitive, though, to make, let's say in the classical term, a non-governmental organization a governmental organization? It's not supposed to be within the scope of a government to make that conversion.
Yes, exactly.
So why? Okay, I get the political aspect of it, and I'm trying not to be political today.
Yeah.
But I get the political aspect, and when you said we've got enough money laundering laws, I don't think we have. We just have the money laundering laws are not effective across the board. Like, it's not distributed equally across everybody. So there are people who are above the law and etc.
Yeah.
To the PVO bill, as far as my interpretation of it was, opportunism, as seeing this young people's movement growing through these organizations, because they have obviously, and I use obviously as in, the gravitation towards them, because they're willing to give out funds if your cause is good enough, or if your cause meets the criteria of what they're looking for to do. So yeah, I agree with you when you say, it just gives them widespread power, and it helps them stop this grassroots movement. Although we can't call Magamba and the entire network a grassroots movement anymore, I think it's mature. But I think there is a fear in what alternative media can do, similar to what we saw in America during the 2016 elections.
Yeah.
Where alternative media became the de facto. People went and looked for media on YouTube. They didn't care about state publications.
Yeah.
So here's my question. Do you think that they are prescient enough, I don't know how to pronounce that word, but forward-thinking enough or forward-vision enough to see a similar situation happening with media? Let's start with the media networks, for example.
Yeah.
That work with NGOs.
I think you're definitely onto something there, because I think the range of what civil society does is so vast. But part of that is on the kind of alternative media, digital media front. So Magamba is registered as an NGO. So are many other digital media organizations that you know of. And so I think this is something that the government is trying to get ahead of for its own reasons. Because of course, when something happens, we get accused, or Pastop gets accused. I mean, there was the leaked audio of ZANU-PF trying on WhatsApp, trying to come up with ways to double book the Chamisa Star Rally, and then they're posting online, "Kuti Magamba Network Ndimi Nana Comic Pasta." And we're like, no, comrades, that production quality was very, very weak. It wasn't us. So I mean, they'll come after. I know Bus Stop. That they go after Bus Stop too for their reports and skits. And I think there's definitely within government this realization that the most independent media space is the digital media space and community media. Because I think the big issue is that you've seen so much capture of previously independent mainstream media in Zim. Of course, state media, we won't even talk about that, because ZBC was born captured. All state radio stations captured. Most independent private radio stations captured. All in cahoots with cronies of ZANU-PF. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of the independent mainstream print publications that we grew up on becoming increasingly questionable in terms of where they stand, either being bought out by people aligned to ZANU-PF or being offered certain positions. And that's happened on the one hand, whereas on the flip side, you've seen the growth and mushrooming of digital media platforms in Zim, especially over the last 2 years, in terms of where you can get your news, where you can get important alternative information. I think even looking at stats from last year, in Zim we had over 5 million internet users, and an increase in internet users by 203,000 people. So you do progressively have more people accessing the internet, and a mushrooming of platforms. If you want to read news, go to 263, you go to 263 Chat or Zim Live. If you want to fact check what you're reading, go to ZimFact. If you want investigative, go to Newshawks. If you want to catch live streams of what's happening in Parliament, you can go to Open Pali. For your comedy, you go to Bus Stop TV and Comic Pasta. For your tech news, you go to Tech Zim. So it's like it's a very vibrant alternative media atmosphere, and I think that's what the government wants to clamp down on, because come election time, you're going to have so many content creators on the ground that are just armed with a mobile phone that can be taking photos of fraud as it's happening at polling stations. You've got people like activists like Pachedu, who use the online space really well in terms of showing how voter fraud is happening. You've got the likes of ERC and ZESNI, who are civic organizations, who will also be monitoring how the elections go. So this is definitely, it's an assault on civil society and specific segments of it. Your alternative media organizations, your human rights lawyers, your election-focused organizations, human rights organizations. So they'll leave if it comes into being, they'll leave alone your food aid organizations and some orphanages.
There was an exclusion in the bill. The bill did not encompass all CSOs or NGOs. There were religious organizations and others that were not really part of it. I was reading Veritas Zimbabwe's assessment of it, and they laid out that religious organizations and others were left out of it because, again, in my opinion, messing with religion in Zimbabwe doesn't get you very far, especially with the electorate. That's why we see most people campaigning in churches, because either side of the aisle, you see them going to Masowe or go to that occasional Sowe and go to churches and campaign. Yeah. So I'm guessing that's why that was left out, because that would have left enough cry. And again, I think it shows the intent. Just in my opinion, that there's a bit of trying to uneven the playing field for independent organizations who now found an ecosystem that could exist. I say this because, like you said, ZBC. The difficulty of getting your message on ZBC is near impossible. Like the ability to get your message there is nigh impossible. They own the airwaves, they own the TV waves. You're not going to get anything other than what is approved onto the airwaves. Yeah. So the internet was just brilliant. For example, Texas itself was born of the fact that there was a title in the Herald that said Econet launches elitist technology when they brought 3G that was only going to be used by the rich. And I found it Limikana was like, screw that. Like, the internet is the future, and here's why we're all here. So that's the beauty of the internet, and it's just sprung up a number of other startups and a number of other organizations that want to speak, not truth to power, but want to speak with an opinion that is not
the state narrative.
Pretty much, I was going to say glazed over, but state narrative is pretty much it. Because for us, this encompasses you as well, because I see a lot of young people here. We're speaking to a vastly different generation. I mean, millennials, we've suffered. Gen X and millennials, we've suffered the boomers' curse of, trying to do their way. Gen Z don't care. And they want things where they can find them. That's why TikTok is so popular around the world, where short format content of people like how I came across you. Yeah. That's how it becomes popular. So I think, I agree with you. I think they really want to stifle that progress. And, internet usage, I think we've been tracking it as well.
Of course. You're the guys.
Kind of. On some days. And the amount of terabytes now that are being consumed in Zimbabwe, ridiculous. We're breaking records every single quarter. Podcast just brings out. And it's not just WhatsApp. It's not just people using WhatsApp bundles. People are now on the wider internet because they're now discovering all these different platforms that speak their kind of language. Yeah. So, I'm tempted not to, become, anyone on the opposition because I'm apolitical. I don't really care about politics. But in terms of the fear that it brings to organizations for you, because it's an existential threat. Yeah. Because you guys are a CSO or an NGO. So on that point of it being an existential threat, my leaning is more, okay, I'll speak frankly. In most cases, it's protecting the back, because funding is the biggest problem for content. And I don't say this flippantly. I say this knowing monetizing a piece of written work or digital work is increasingly difficult in Zimbabwe. You have payments problems. So whenever you can find money, you get, and you're not the only example of this. There are a bunch of other organizations. So for anyone who doesn't understand, can you just go into your business model itself, since you're registered CSO? Just go into your business model and why this bill kind of intersects with what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So in terms of how Magamba's, we're exactly registered as a civic organization. So basically, what we do, we have a lot of different projects and platforms that we run. So we've got two main programs. So we've got our Digital X program and our Arts for Change program. So Digital X is all about using digital activism, civic tech, and creative means to increase young people's participation in political processes. So we've got 5 main projects under that. We've got Shoko Festival, which is Zim's longest running festival of urban culture. Magamba TV, where you go to for satire and some cheeky jokes and your news. We've got Open Pali, which is our kind of groundbreaking project we launched some years back, which trains citizen journalists to go tweet live from Parliament, and it's kind of exploded, and we've spread it across the continent. So we've got Open Pali Nigeria, Somalia, and Zambia. The 4th project is Moto Republik, where we are right now, Zim's first creative hub and co-working space for youthies. And then the 5th is the Feed ZW, which is all about producing producing video stories from young people's perspectives. And then our 2nd program is Arts for Change. So it's all about using arts and creative means to trigger conversations around accountability with young people. So there are 2 projects there. It's Voice to Rep, which is kind of first of its kind nationwide music competition for socially conscious artists. And then the Film Fellowship, which is all about incubating a new generation of socially conscious filmmakers. So those are the kind of projects we run, and so we get funding support for some of the programs that we do, like some of the trainings and boot camps that we run for citizen journalists, or for some of the programs that we produce. Then we also offer our services to other civic organizations, other foundations, kind of offer our digital and creative skills. And then also we produce content for local and regional, international broadcasters. So we've produced stuff for ESTV, but we've produced content for DW in Germany. So it's kind of a snapshot.
Yeah, that's quite extensive amount of work. And I was here last year. I was actually a mentor. I don't know who the hell picked me to be a mentor, but okay, for the Content Creator Startup Week.
Yes.
And again, I was there. I wasn't expecting the kind of turnout that so I'm not saying no one will show up, but the amount of people I saw was something I wasn't prepared for. But then when you listen to each young content entrepreneur, there's the same thing. We don't know how to monetize. We don't know hubs to work from. We don't know. I think the guy from Bachedu is here, Tanatsko. I think I saw him here. Pachikua, Tanatsko. I see him here a bunch of times.
Yeah. And
it's become that place for content startups.
Yeah.
And there are a number of people. I think King Kandor as well is a product of this
network. Exactly, very much, yeah.
And now he's not returning my calls because he's
he's doing the things, man.
Yeah, so it's that this place was formed, or the inception of this place. It's not inception. The purpose of this place now is pretty much to be the hub, an incubator for content creation and content creation platform. But more than that is to push the message of free thinking, freedom of speech. And I like Open Pali as an example, because in the UK, I was there for brief periods, and you get Prime Minister's questions, where it's beamed on live TV, you get everything.
Yeah.
In Zim, you don't get too much of that. I've been a ZBC subscriber since birth, and there are rare instances where you get that. But Open Pali is one of those platforms I was like, okay, wait, you can literally sit on, because when I was in uni, you can sit on Twitter and watch what's going on at home.
Yeah.
There is no agenda to it. It's just, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. You can then stream it. And I see it's particularly popular with the diaspora. Mm-hmm. They love to get that picture of what's going on in Zimbabwe. So the work has been done is great. And obviously your funding comes from other NGOs, and some of it is self-sustaining. I want to know the disparity between the funding from CSOs and NGOs, other organizations, or INGOs, international, non-governmental organizations, because there's a bit of an alphabet soup with NGOs classification. So you give me like a disparity between, or comparison between what you guys have been able to achieve yourselves, and where you guys call them like, we actually need money. I'm not saying this to be a dick. I'm saying this because, it's the balance is important.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, we still get, a fair bit of funding for most of our programming, but the key thing for us is always seeing about how we can, generate new revenue streams through the work that we do. So in terms of like revenue, we generate and we bring through our consultancies and so on. I think we'd look at about 30% in terms of what we bring in. We're also in the process of launching a new studio.
Jealous. So jealous.
Going to be launching this week. So that's a whole brand new space, double-story building. It's got 2 TV and film studios, audio studio, web series studio, writer's room, editing suite. So this is like the next step in our journey, not just for producing all the content we need to, because of course we need a more space than we've got here. Moto is an amazing creative hub and co-working space, but we also needed a full-on, just dedicated.
So you've kind of outgrown Moto in terms of what you can do here.
Yeah, exactly. So Moto will stay as our creative hub, our co-working space. It's the space for really dope events and talks and everything. But our whole production unit has moved to the studio. And the idea behind the studio is not just for Magamba Productions. It's very much the idea is for it to become the studio for alternative media, for new content creators, and for like important civic content. Realizing how much the media space has become captured, that we need to create our own studios to put across that alternative messaging. Because unfortunately, a lot of the studios that we see being used online, even by civic organizations, are in some way controlled by the state or those aligned with the ruling party. So this is a step to creating a very new independent studio space with new voices that we can get out there online.
So 70/30 is for me now makes the existential part more pertinent, because for those international non-governmental organizations, they can back out and be like, no, we don't want to be part of a system where we can be easily controlled by, because that's not our purpose here. Our purpose is to meet the deficiencies that we've seen that are happening here. So this is something that got me to the evolution of CSOs and NGOs. That back in the 1950s, it was more about women's organizations, women's rights, workers' movements, unions, to now in the 2000s being more about governance, constitutionalism, and policy. There is the fear, and it's not saying that I'm implying this, but I think it's a question I've always been curious about. There is a quote-unquote neo-colonialist element when it comes to foreign powers. And I'm not saying this in the sense of, in the Zimbabwean sense. In the sense we hear parroted on TV a bunch of times. I'm saying it in the sense that agendas get mixed up. You are now behest to someone's objectives, even though your initial, let's say, starting point was pure. So how has that affected you and Magamba as a network? Have you ever said to your funders, guys, I
completely hear you, and I think all funders have their agendas, and I think one of the key things is also remaining independent as an organization. So that you're not doing the bidding of a foreign government or your own government, but remaining independent as an organization. I think the important thing is about, like with us, we always retain full creative control of our programming. So we kind of come up with the concept, the idea, and we'll pitch it, and then get support to match it, but not going the other way around and saying Ningi's offering his money for this. I don't really believe in it, but I'll do it. And I think that's really important, so that you maintain your independence, so that you're not seen as some flim-flam organization that will just do this today and this tomorrow. And I think also, for us, it's as Magamba, very much about always being guided by because we've grown so much. We're like, okay, we've got our vision, our mission, but you need even more than that to anchor you if you're a growing organization. So I think we're always trying to stay guided by our 4 pillars, 4 value pillars, which is that what we do needs to be about social justice, it needs to be creative and innovative, it needs to have community impact, and it needs to be youth-driven and youth-focused. So everything we do needs to tick those boxes. And yeah, that's how we kind of come up with our programming, and the big goals that we want to achieve is trying to come up with that really dope, homegrown, innovative Zimbabwean programming that can deliver a better country.
So how are you? So I'm struggling to wrap my head around staying authentic, because I struggle with the same thing. Is that when you're writing something, you want to be as authentic as possible. When you're creating the content, particularly for me, I have to tone myself down a bit because I can get carried away. I have to become a little bit more reserved, and that doesn't quite feel authentic. So that whole process with navigating through, people with a lot of money, a lot of power, and I've seen, guys like the British Council with the Scripts and Bars, Comics Post, what they're running there. With the US Embassy was here for the content creation startup week.
Exactly.
And they're pouring a lot of money into the arts, and I think that my assumption is they're trying to create an art renaissance in Zimbabwe, because there's a lot of money going out there. And I know Shoko Festival as well was backed by initiatives like that.
Yes, exactly.
So that authenticity is something that's difficult. In my head, I struggle weighing people's expectations to be like, I want to create this thing, right? Yeah. But then you're getting pushed and pulled through, and I'm assuming this is me making assumptions. I'm not saying this is the case.
Yeah.
But in my head, it's like you're trying to navigate through these barriers of very powerful organizations with very clear objectives.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain that authenticity in your product design, which is your content, as well as in your organizational structure?
I mean, yeah, I think it's especially difficult for startups that are starting out, or like a young organization, a young civic organization that's starting out. It's difficult to say no to money that comes with certain strings attached. It's easier, like the more mature your organization gets, and you can say no to this and yes to that. I think in the Magamba situation, we were, we set it up with Outspoken back in the day in 2007. We actually met at a poetry slam. We were both spoken word artists, and he had seen me boasting that me and my crew were the dopest spoken word crew, and he was like, "Nah, man, I'm gonna beat this dude." And so he walked all the way from Mazoe, because he didn't have bus fare, into town to the book cafe, and we battled. And there were 12 poets, and we both made it through the first round. Then there were 6 poets, and the 2 of us made it into the final against each other. And we battled, and unfortunately, the people judged that it was a tie, so we had to share the prize, which was chicken and chips in a book. I was hungry, so I took the chicken and chips. He was hungry for knowledge, so he took the book. And that's when we decided we could work together. And we're like, man, let's do some work. And at the time, we realized like Zim, it was very depressing. Like Zim it was 2007, which is the year before 2008. We need to say more. And so we launched Magamba in November 2007. And it was all about using creative means to reach out to young people, to inspire them to be part of positive change in their country. And that's how we started the organization. We weren't rushing to get funding or anything. It was much more of like a passion project, because we were at first we were kind of running it while doing our hustles and jet on the side, to pay the rent. And so it gave us the space, kind of running it as a passion project, to put on different events and different projects that we were really passionate about. So then when it got to the point of people actually saying, "Oh, yo, do you want some funding for this?" We're like, yeah, that could be dope. As opposed to the other way around, where you're like, "Guys, let's set up an organization to get funding." For what? So you need, guys, when you start out, you need that, that vision, the passion, the values. Let the other shit follow. Because if you start united by money, not a vision, then you're bound to fail. So I think that's really a key thing. And like you're saying, being authentic, I think I think for us, it's always about making sure that we are authentic and that we stay relevant. We started out as a spoken word and hip hop organization. We were running spoken word and hip hop events, concerts, and then I guess it was pivot, satire, digital media, innovation, now civic tech, and I think for us, like, It's not about being loyal to projects. It's about being loyal to your vision and loyal to people, but not to projects. You can shift, you can change your projects around. If it's no longer relevant, drop it. Why are you running it if it's not achieving an impact? Oh, it's got a nice name and a logo. So what? So I think for us, that's also like the story of how we've kind of, consistently pivoted, introduced new creative ways of programming, yet, digital or satire and so on. Because for us, it's about achieving the objectives. It's about building a new Zimbabwe that's got a really radically participatory democracy, that's got a just and equal economy, that allows every voice to speak. And so if our programs are delivering that, if our projects are delivering that, kawan. If they're not, flip it up, change the script, do something new.
So for you, basically the message is not anything else, because I think you guys are top three, Kubatana, Magamba, and another organization I've forgotten, are the ones really running with the PVO bill. Because I keep saying the word existential. It is what it is. Like,
yeah, definitely.
This will see a lot of organizations in the crosshairs, and I hate using the term capture because I'm apolitical.
Capture.
It's trying to avoid that situation where, we no longer have a place where we can hear alternative opinions. And I say this as a person who writes things that people disagree with, because I think disagreement is such an important part of civic discourse, or just discourse in general.
Completely,
Because if we then get to the point where we're all agreeing with each other, we're not doing anything. We're not moving forward. So I prefer someone, even if they're misguided, to come and, disagree with me, even though sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. But 60% of the time, it's thereabouts. But I find that valuable. And networks like yours, in the capacity they're in now, help further that along, and attracting the kind of donor and funding that can then help other startups. Because like I said, this place is kind of a hub. And I'm not saying this is a fan, because I've been here 4 or 5 times now, and I've seen a bunch of content creators that I recognize and that I don't. Last time we were here, I think Sean Dowder was downstairs. I know he's doing a movie. I had no idea how connected he was to this place. But when you walk here, you just see a bunch of content entrepreneurs, producers, directors, and you're like, okay, something must be going on here. So the PVO bill, as objective as I'm trying to say, I think as I'm trying to stay, is kind of fighting against that in a bit. Because if you are found wanting, you can be replaced. And they'll put me. I'll be a bootleg. Big. It's like I can just simply say, we're gonna shift direction, shift course. I'm not saying this is what they want to do, but I'm just saying, like, by the reading of the bill itself, it's really frightening to think about. And I feel that people think that what you guys are doing is an overreaction, when you've never been in a situation where someone is actually fighting for their survival. I think that there's a massive difference to that. And just to cap off, because I think I've taken more of your time than I'd like. That quote by Chris Mchango. Now, I know you said it. You played the clip. I think maybe you can drop the clip. Possible, not possible. But we'll rip off their YouTube video. But I have it written out here. I found it in the radio. Now, because we have exposed them, being the NGOs, they have no organizational capacity. NGOs now want to move into as the substitute for opposition parties, uncover all sorts of things they want to substitute a failing MDC. If they are so good, why can't we have NGOs to make sure that Harare has water, no potholes, and garbage is collected in Harare? When I saw this, it made me question the sincerity of what the government is trying to do. So it's kind of a pivot point for me, because you hear someone advocating for something, I don't understand why you're advocating for it. When you hear the people who are crafting the bill saying, why aren't the NGOs for potholes and running water, and that's their job, you literally have the one job. That made me question the sincerity of what they're trying to do, and maybe sympathize with you guys. But from what was your first reaction when you saw that? As with the video, when you saw that, what was your honest reaction, honest to God reaction?
WTF. I mean, like you're saying, I think that exposes the real thinking behind the bill. I mean, it's a terrible bill to begin with, and it's very vague and very general. But I think what Mtrangwa did is really expose the real thinking. One, saying that we are trying to replace a failing opposition. That's not the role of civil society. And if the opposition was failing, why are they so worried about the opposition doing rallies? And that's on the political party side. Civic organizations are not here to campaign for political parties, and they don't. I think another thing that it touches on is the issue of civics being involved in politics. So actually, in the bill, it says that PVOs should not be involved in politics. Very vague. Elections is politics. Voter registration is politics. So such vague things like that is basically trying to boot civic organizations out of civic space, out of being able to engage citizens, out of being able to question the government. And then the last thing that Ntrangwa touched on, exactly, he forgot his TORs, is the Hurment. I mean, the Hurment's TORs is that.
Yeah.
Shima pothole, all the potholes you see on Hopewell's feet. That is the business. That is the business of government and local government. That is government and city councils. If it's clean water, refuse collection, fixing roads. This right here, this is Zimbra in Harare City Council.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that is not the work of civil society organizations. I think what he shows is the fact of how much the ZANU-PF government has failed to deliver those basic things, where now civic organizations and NGOs are having to step in to provide clean water. You've got private companies that are stepping in to do refuse collection, because we've got a city council that refuse collection. They don't do the collection in the first place. And this is a city council, and that is, yes, it has been run by the opposition, but it's completely hamstrung by a manipulative central government controlled by ZANU-PF. And any mayor that gets in there from the opposition who tries to make any changes, it gets suspended. So this is the government not understanding what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, but I'd also push back on that and say, not in defense of ZANU-PF or anything, but I'm saying the length to which even MDC mayors or whatever have gone to. Now, I'm saying this is from the outside looking in, so forgive me if I sound flippant.
Yeah.
But like the length to which some people have gone to make things work, for me, leaves a little wanting, because even if we do get an opposition mayor or whatever, we don't see any indelible change. Now, I understand there are forces working against that, but with alternative revenue streams that they can access or they might have access to, there's certain things that they can do to move the needle. Now, I'm not saying they haven't done anything, but for me, just looking around Harare and be like, yeah, well, where y'all at? Like, I guess you got pressures, but again, that's your job as mayor to make a way when there is no way.
Yeah.
And we see that in other countries where there could be a opposition or opposing parties in charge of different sort of jurisdictions, but you can see the work being done in other areas, even though there are pressures. Now, again, this is just me saying this to say that as just an ordinary citizen, when I go through, I'm still complaining about the same things I complained about back in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
and it's 2022, and I'm like, okay, make a good case for yourselves.
Yeah, no, but I think that's exactly it. Is that the opposition, formerly MDC, now CCC, hasn't actually made the case about why it's so difficult for it to effectively run local councils across Zim. And that's not to say there haven't been some terrible examples and instances of mismanagement and corruption. That's definitely there amongst some MDC councillors. I think the issue is that ZANU-PF, once upon a time, they were happy to have executive mayors in Harare when ZANU-PF was winning. That's been abolished, and now you've got ceremonial mayors because the opposition has taken control of most urban areas. So the ceremonial mayor is just ceremonial. And they've put the power into the Minister of Local Government, who can fire when he wants, and ultimately the Minister of Local Government, who ends up having the power over who runs Townhouse. Because those who run Townhouse, the technocrats, are the ones with the power. Your town clerk and your other technocrats who work within are the ones who've got power in the current situation. So we saw that even when they tried to demolish Moto Republic and the mayor came out and said, no, we'll stop this, it was the technocrats within city council who were pushing the agenda, whereas the opposition elected mayor was saying, no, we should stop this. So those internal dynamics are also really what's kind of, I think, what's frustrated opposition-led councils from delivering on what they should be doing.
Actually, forgot about that detail that this place was actually going to be demolished.
Yeah.
I wasn't around for that.
Comrade, we've died for this republic. We died for this co-working space.
Now, just this round of what was that situation like? What was the for those who weren't around, like me, who weren't around for it but heard about it? But what was the situation around them trying to remove you guys from here?
Yeah, so they just they rocked up one day with cranes and literally with cranes and 30 municipal police, and they started trying to hack the containers down while people were in the co-working space, calling it an illegal structure. When we clearly had plans that we showed them, approved plans, they still proceeded to try and knock it down. Obviously, I think there were political influences behind that. But yeah, luckily, this being the kind of creative hub that it is, my youthies and my Twitter ninjas, within an hour, the hashtag Save Moto Republic was the most trending hashtag on Twitter. It forced the mayor to intervene, Ben Manyenyeni at the time, and it forced the Minister of Local Government, Xavier Kasugwe, to intervene. They both were forced by all the pressure online to come and visit Moto Republic within the first few days. The mayor was in the first hour. Because of the pressure we put, because we took the city council to high court, and just a huge online campaign where just young people just like, I know, but Moto Republic haven't been there, but that's where we get our news from the week, from Bus Stop TV. So many young people joined that campaign that they had to back down. So yeah, we won that battle.
So for you guys, you literally were going to get rocked out of this.
Yeah.
And then now they couldn't come after the structure. This is just me talking as Valentine. Yeah. They couldn't come after the structure. Now they're coming out of the business model.
Exactly. That is the thing. I think for us, the PVO bill is the most existential threat we've faced since they tried to demolish our offices. That's how existential it is.
So they just let the structure stay up, but we'll control who's in the structure.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Comrade Fatso. It's been great. I've taken a lot more of your time than I wanted, but yeah. Thank you very much for the time, for the opportunity to talk to you. He's done the work now. I don't have to write about this. I can just copy paste. Custom HTML, people just listen to it.
We've done the work. I'll send you the invoice, boss. No, thanks for having me, man.
Thanks, man. Right, everyone, thank you for listening, and for those on YouTube watching, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We're on 6,300 and some followers.
Boom.
Can we please get to 10K by year's end? Please, Comrade Fatso, I'm relying on you.
All right, I'll subscribe with all of my ghost accounts and my Barakashi accounts. I'll get Nick Mangwana to subscribe to, and Jamwanda's not on Twitter anymore. But anyway.
What about this one?
I got this one.
Oh yeah, so what happened?
I got posted my fake news.
I haven't done it. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out our UCC star 405 hash. Our app is now 0 rated, so you can buy your bundles, Internet One bundles, Tower One bundles without needing data. If you're on Ethernet, other networks are being worked on. And Technikari 0 rated, so if you're on Ethernet, you can use for free, except for podcasts, which is another story, but another day. Thank you.